Hello, this is old Mr. Kent, and this is the little bungalow that my son built for me and my wife to stay in out his little farm out here. And I mean, very little. And he made it as an attachment to his shop. And so as we're sitting in there, we get to hear the sounds of him working in his shop and grinding and pounding and the compressor running and all that kind of stuff. But the other day it was 111 degrees, and we were sitting in the little bungalow there in the living room, and we heard this funny sound. It was like he was picking something up and dropping it, and we'd go boom, and it would happen. You know, it wasn't constant, just intermittent. And we hear this boom, and we're not, you know. So after a half a dozen of those, I decided I would get up and go see what was going out. So I looked out this window, and about that time he was running across from over here to over there, and I came out to see what was going on. Well, let me show you what was going on, and we'll go over here. He came out of his house, which you can probably see there. He came out of his house and he saw flames over here, and the flames were coming right from that area there. And so he came running over. He thought maybe I had done something and I was playing around with fire or something. I don't know what he thought, but anyway. And so the flames were coming out of that white bucket there and going up 6 or 8 feet into the air. And he couldn't figure it out because the bucket was full of water, and the flames was whatever it was shooting up out of there like 4th of July fireworks, and they were shooting up and then and causing a fire. And the bucket was sitting right there, okay? And so then as it was shooting fire up, then the frame of the door, if I can get it in focus here, the frame of the door started on fire. And so as he got here, he picked the bucket up, and there were fire shooting out of it and everything, and he took it. And about this time is when I got up out of my chair to see what was going on outside. And so he brought it, he had just come by the window as I came out, and he took it out here and threw it down and tipped it over. And remember, that was that white plastic bucket. And so as it laid on its side, all kinds of fire was shooting out and flames and everything. And what it was he had, I was going to throw away my old e-bike battery. And he said, no, don't put it in the garbage because it could catch on fire in the truck. And I said, okay. So he said, just put it in salt water, which is what he and I used to do in order to, with our RC cars and RC planes. It's what we used to do to old batteries, old LiPo batteries, so that they'd be totally dead when we threw them away. Well, as you can see, that's what was on fire. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and go in the house and start explaining why things happened and how come it happened, and what I believe. And so what you want to do is be real careful with these e-bike batteries, because they can handle a lot of current, generates a lot of heat, and the next thing you know, you got a fire. So let's go in the house and I'll finish my story. All right, I'm in the house now, sitting at my computer with my microphone, and I'll finish the story and tell you what I've learned from it. First of all, what he did was he sprayed everything with the hose. As soon as he dumped the bucket out there, he grabbed the hose and started spraying everything, spraying into the bucket to put the fire out. And so then when he finally got that done, then raised put it in a metal bucket and filled it with water and put a concrete block on top of it. So anyway, and then we still need to clean up all the spots and everything that the lithium was melting, and shooting up in the air and landing on everything. So, and it has an odor, as I understand. So it's going to have to be cleaned up a little bit. Anyway, back to the story. So the the thing finally, stopped and everything. And when we used to fly planes and run RC cars, our little 7-volt batteries, you could short them out and they would get hot, but it wasn't like like a 54-volt battery when it gets hot. And so what happened was I should have well, actually we'll get to that part in a minute. But there's a lot of current flowing, and where there's current and resistance, heat is generated, and so with all that, well, then the everything got like red hot inside and started burning everything up. The old incandescent light bulbs that we used to have, that little filament in the middle, that light that brightened up, it was made out of nickel, which is a metal. But nickel has a lot of resistance. It's one of those metals. And so it was just the right stuff to use for a light bulb, because when you put 120 volts on it, it turned really white hot. Fortunately, it was in a vacuum in a sealed bulb, but anyway, if it was out in the air, it would have burned up. So that's what happens when current goes through something at a high rate. It heats up. And so that battery had 16 3.1 volt lithium ion batteries in it. And as it turned out, every boom we heard was one of those cells exploding because of the heat. And then, of course, once the fire started, then they started exploding more rapidly. The more current there is, the more heat there is. And so I just we didn't realize that was going to happen because of so much voltage. And so, anyway, what I did was what I did wrong. I'll put it this way: is when I put it in the bucket, I mixed up some salt water, and I put it in the bucket. First thing I did wrong was leave it sitting next to the house. Okay, but the thing is, I left the switch off. Those batteries have a switch for turning a circuit on and off, and then also that makes it so you can pull out the battery from the bike. So when I had pulled the battery out, I had it in the off position, and it was still off. And so as it sat there in the salt water, nothing happened until 2 or 3 days later, 4 days later, whatever, the salt water finally ate its way through the seal between the two parts that made up the battery, and the salt water seeped in, and of course it carries current really well, doesn't have hardly any resistance, and so everything started coming apart. And so, and by the way, I had a viewer ask if you could repair a battery, and I wouldn't even try, but I told him I thought maybe they were filled with resin, because that's the way they do a lot of things, but it wasn't filled with resin. Anyway, so it leaked through the seal and everything shorted out, and what I should have done is take that, if I would have been thinking about the difference between 7 volts and 54 volts, I would have set it out in the middle of the parking lot and turned the key on so immediately it would start shorting out. But I didn't realize that, what's going to happen is there's so much current, it's going to burn up the battery right there in the salt water. So the best choice would have been, and I don't always make the best choices, as you can tell, best choice would have called a battery recycling service, given it to them to take care of. And second best choice is to go bury it where nobody's ever going to be digging. And so we're going to end up burying it. I don't think there's any cells left in there, but there were 16 that could have blown up, and we heard a lot of pops, so it doesn't matter. That's probably what we're going to do with it. The thing is, just almost burned down the house that my son built for me and my wife. It came really close because the flames were, it actually got part of it on fire. But anyway, so he came out of the house just in time to see the flames when it had just started. And so God's good. And I want to thank you for watching my video, and God bless.